and welcome back to an absolutely Baltic Shoogly shed. Winter has definitely set in. It's kind of been quite a mild November, but we've kind of hit December, head on with quite a chilly blast from the Arctic. So Scotland is looking quite white today, just under frost, but yeah, it doesn't make for the most pleasant of conditions working in the shed. I did, however, buy a new heater the other day, so hopefully that will improve things. Yeah, so I've started wiring the VMAX. I have already done, so I'm going to use NWT products, and I'll talk a little bit about what I'm using, but I've already done like a full NWT install video on the XS250. I'll put a wee link up for that if you want to check that out. Only thing different this time is that I'm using an X21 Plus, which is the kind of step up from the X21 that I put in the XS250. Reason being, the VMAX just has more going on electronically. Like the XS250 is pretty much ignition system and lights, not much else, whereas this has cooling systems and fuel pumps and stuff like that. So there is a bit more going on. So it differs a wee bit, but the premise is the same with the NWT stuff. Every purchase of any NWT system, you get included a custom diagram for the bike that you're working on, including all like the aftermarket parts that you're fitting. NWT will make up a custom diagram for you, and that's what they've done for me. So that's what I'm following. It does make it quite simple. There's a lot of wires to go into this bike, but I'm just chipping away at it one at a time. It's kind of why I'm not just gonna make a whole episode purely on the wiring, or it's not gonna be a how-to, because again, with these systems it's so specific. But yeah, I'm enjoying it actually, and even though it's cold, it's quite meditative just to kind of get into the headspace of wiring and enjoying doing all the crimp connections and running the cables and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's actually not as bad a job as it sounds, and I know a lot of people are quite scared of auto wiring, but in reality, especially with this system, it's not as scary as it looks. You just need to chip away and you'll get there in the end. Okay, here's where we're at. This side of the bike, we've got the sort of cooling system stuff, and then also this massive bunch of cables poking out here is all the ignition system from the CDI and ignition units under here. There's also some coils under there, which these cables come from, so all of that needs to get tied into the loom. Not much else going on this side of the bike really. There's just a brake light switch, and that's kind of it. Up here we've got coils for the two rear cylinders. We've also got the solenoid and the NWT battery is under there. Quite neat little small battery that fits right inside that battery box quite neatly. Also got the fuel sender that we fitted a few episodes ago. Obviously going to have to tie in the rear light and the license plate light as well. And then this side is where things start to get a bit more interesting. We've got, these are wires that come from the stator that go to the ignition unit on the other side of the bike, tell the bike when to fire. We've also got cables running up from here that go from, these go from the pickup coils, these go from the stator I should say. These go from the stator and they go into the reg rec, which is mounted under here. It's an NWT reg rec I'm using again. These work really well with their batteries, easy to wire as well. And then this is kind of the hub, this is the brain where everything's going on. This is going to fit under the left hand scoop of the bike. So usually there was some electronic parts here originally, but I've relocated them and we've fitted the X21 Plus in here. I've got it with one bolt running through the back plate here, and then there's also a 3M sticky pad on this portion of it, so it's nice and secure. It's stuck to that plate pretty well. Fuel pump relay, there's also an SPDT relay I need to get to go in there, and then all these cables basically running from the NWT X21 Plus unit all need to get tied in to the various things on the bike. We're also using the P-type switches up here, the switch gear. Again, they're sort of momentary switches. There's two on the front and one at the back on both sides. Those cables are running under here and they've been plugged directly into the unit here. Yeah, it's just a case of basically following my diagram and making sure all these wires go to where they need to be, and then making it all nice and neat and wrapping the loom with, I've got some sort of nylon wrap stuff, the same stuff that I used on the XS250. Yeah, it's a long process, but actually it's not complicated. It's just there's a lot to do. I've got various wee earthing points. There's an earth point there that I've got set up. I've got another one over here, and then I've got another one on the other side there, because the good thing about NWT is that it shows you how to earth off components off of like frame earthing points, rather than having earth cables running all over the bike, all going to one central earth, and that actually minimises the number of cables you've got like running all over the bike, and it just simplifies the whole setup. Anyway, I'm just gonna kind of plod on with this. I'm gonna stick some Christmas music on maybe, and just get my head into the zone for wiring, and try and get a bit more festive while I'm at it. It's quite colourful. It feels quite Christmassy, all these colours. Anyway, without further ado, I'm just gonna get on with this. Just been chipping away, just connecting the things that I, can connect just now. I've got an updated wiring diagram coming from NWT, just that clarifies the motoscope wiring. Once I get that, I can wire the plugs for the motoscope and things like that. Everything else, I'm kind of like 80% wired now. Only thing I haven't wired is the headlight, but that's quite easy. It's just a couple of powers and grounds going to that. Everything else is kind of wired in, to be honest. I've got A couple of cables at the back that are just blanked off, ready for when the tail light goes on. The plate light is all wired in. Ignition system, the stator, pickup coils, etc. is all wired in. Solenoid's wired in. Coils are all wired in. I've started putting things into the X21 up here as well, as you've seen. And then really it's a case of neatening everything up. Everything's just kind of run about where it needs to go. Nothing's been like wrapped yet. I've got some lovely sheathing, some harness kind of wrapping to go on as well, just because obviously otherwise you've just got this big mess of spaghetti. Yeah, we're getting there. It's one of these tasks that, like I said earlier, can seem quite daunting, but once you just start ticking off the connections, it's actually not as bad as it seems. The main thing is just up here I've got this big bunch of cables that I'm going to have to try and figure out where they go into the motoscope. Just because the motoscope has so much about it, I'm probably going to do a different episode on that wiring specifically. But aside from that, all I kind of need to do now is get the main harness all wrapped up and neatened off. But yeah, just a quick little episode, this one, with some time lapses of putting the wiring together and obviously explaining a little bit about what we're doing with this bike with regards to wiring. And like I say, I'll do an episode that is more specific on the motoscope wiring. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for like a sort of how-to NWT install video, I did do one on the XS250 previously, but also check out Brickhouse Builds. BJ has done a number of videos now on really quite detailed installs from the X21 and I think the X21 Plus as well. He has all the information you need for that kind of thing, so I'll link him as well if you're looking for that kind of information. But aside from that, hopefully this was just a nice little view of what I'm doing to wire the VMAX. We're getting there. The finish line is sort of is not so distant in the horizon now. It's just annoying little things like, you know, getting these things all wired in, and then still waiting on the forks. That's a saga, but I've got an episode on the forks that I've been trying to finish for quite a while now, but it just keeps changing. So bear with me on that one, and I will fill you in on the details when I know the details. Anyway, I've rabbled enough. Probably the cold's getting to me, and it's starting to get dark as well. So I've spent long enough on my own in the shed looking at multicoloured spaghetti, and my brain's a bit scrambled. As usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. I appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. Take care. See you next time. Goodbye. Oh, it's so bloody cold. Look at my breath. Look.